Hello, everyone. Greetings to you all. Today I'm based here in Kimana, Kenya, a town located near Amboseli National Park and about 15 to 18 miles away from the Tanzanian border. Right behind me, past those hills, is the peak of Mount Kilimanjaro. Today, we will be talking to the center director of the School for Field Studies, who is a professor in tourism and wildlife management surrounding the environment and its other ecological factors. He'll be providing us with some information on other mammals and his career. Everyone, today I'm joined here with Dr. Moses Okello, who is the Center Director for SFS, School for Field Studies. We are based in Kimana, Kenya. And would you tell us a bit more about yourself, your background as a professor, like what got you into studying wildlife conservation and ecology, and how your journey started first coming into the SFS program?
Thank you for having me and thank you for the question. Yes, my name is Professor Okello. I'm Center Director for SFS Kenya. My journey as a wildlife professor began way back in 1987 when I first took my first degree at a local university in Kenya called Moi University. So from 1987 to 1990, I did my undergraduate. During that time, there was an American professor called E.O. Gatton. He came to do a Fulbright program in Kenya, and he came during our last year. And we got to be friends, and I was getting very good grades in school. So after I graduated, because I graduated with the highest GPA, he asked me if I could come to Idaho and study for a master's, and that was very beautiful. So I graduated in 1990, and in 1991, actually just I think 1991, somewhere like September, I got a ticket. He actually organized for me to be employed back by the university, and the university gave me a ticket to go to the US. So I got a ticket, and they gave me a research assistantship. He had gotten a grant from US Fish, no, from US Forest Service. Yes, from US Forest Service. So I went to Idaho and started my master's. And I did my research on a very small animal called pocket gopher in the Northwest Pacific forests. We were looking at how they are destroyed by pocket gophers when there is harvesting, complete harvesting of the pines in the Pacific Northwest. After that, I think in Idaho, I learned a lot of things. I learned very good conservation skills. I continued to work hard in school, got very good grades, um, and actually performed as one of the best international students, and graduated in 1993 from Idaho. But before I left Idaho, I really wanted to go on for a PhD because I knew coming back to Kenya, it would be very difficult to get a scholarship to go back, and I still felt I was energetic enough to go back to back. So I made about 100 applications to different schools, including Princeton University, New Jersey, Missoula, University of Montana in Missoula. All those accepted me, and then I also applied to University of Alberta in Canada. Now, there was a professor in Princeton who was working in Kenya on wildlife, and he said that he was not, he was going to look for money and I should go. He would take me after 1 year. But the University of Alberta, a professor there entered me into a scholarship that gives top African scholars a PhD scholarship, and it was there immediate. So I decided to take that one. So I finished in May 1993 from Idaho, and in September the same year, 1993, I reported to University of Alberta in Canada for my PhD, and did it and finished in 1996, record time. I came back home. I was about 35. I had a PhD. I was feeling on top of the world. And I went back to my former university, and they offered me a job as a lecturer. So I started to work as a lecturer in wildlife management and wildlife ecology. And I was actually focusing on wildlife management, wildlife ecology, but I had a minor in statistics, lab numbers. I taught for only 5 years. And during my that time, I started to have a relationship with SFS. Because when I was in Canada, I met somebody who had actually taught SFS in Kenya and introduced me to SFS while I was still a student in Canada. And asked me, when you go back home, you should try SFS. Possibly they could also give you a job. So when I came to Kenya, I approached SFS. I made an application, but there was no vacancy for a teacher in SFS until 5 years later, in 1999. So in 1999, I was offered a job in SFS as a resident faculty, and they were opening a second site from Nairobi. That time there used to be a site near Nairobi National Park and a site here in Amboseli. Well, they wanted to open a new site in Amboseli because the student enrollment was like they were turning people away. We had more than 100 applicants, and they could only have a chance for about 30. So we opened a second site in Amboseli where we are now, and I was one of the pioneer faculty who were given a position to begin a second SFA site in Kenya in Amboseli in 1999. And just going back a little bit, SFS has been in Kenya for over 40 years. It was actually the first SFS program in the world, started in around the Nairobi National Park that I'm talking about in around 1980s, and offers start abroad program experience for American students who want to start abroad in environmental conservation. But particularly in Kenya, we were focusing on wildlife management. And so it has been a very popular program. When I joined it in 1999, it was expanding. And so we started to have two programs in Kenya, focusing on wildlife management and conservation. Until 2009, uh, about 10 years, after a lot of teaching, very good reviews from students. I was very active publishing students' work. We do directed research, so I was publishing our directed research with the students. Even some of the data we got from field exercise, I would design them in such a way that they were credible and they were rigorous, and then we publish them. I think at that time I was very productive in the prime of my academic life. I was like publishing about 3 to 5 papers every year. And I published them, and I think right now I have about 70 papers published. And most of them were from SFS with our students here in Amboseli on a variety of topics. And during that time, I grew professionally. I deepened my understanding for conservation issues in Kenya and in third world. I had an opportunity to even specialize on elephant movements and ranging. We collared them, we monitored their movements, and we did a lot of work. I think that is how my journey began as a wildlife professional, and also how I got into SFS. 2009, I was actually appointed director. So I taught for 10 years until like 2009. I was appointed director. After the director was there, moved on. And then 2 years later, I was actually appointed senior director for East Africa and was asked to go to Tanzania to begin our center in Tanzania. So actually, I began the center in Tanzania, hired faculty, looked for the site, established the center, and for 2 years, I managed both Kenya and Tanzania at the same time. And so I was running back and forth. But eventually, we hired Tanzania staff, and I returned back and specialized in Kenya. That's how my journey has been with SFS and my journey as a conservationist. It is very enriching. It's a very good space intellectually to operate in. Um, the only challenge for conservation is slightly an elitist subject when you look at the context of African countries, because a lot of people, more than 70%, live below $1. So there is a lot of poverty. And when there is a lot of poverty, people focus on things that really benefit people: food security, health care, education. Those get priority. People don't pay as much attention to conservation issues, the decline in endangered species, human wildlife conflicts, encroachment on wildlife space, efficient management of protected areas, the impact of tourism on conservation, stuff like that. They become a little bit elitist. They are not very clearly known to people because it needs possibly a higher level of learning or understanding. But it is wonderful to have a voice for conservation, to have a voice for elephants, to have a voice for lions, and just to also advocate that while we look at human interests, it's very important to look at the interests of biodiversity because we cannot do without it. They improve our quality of life.
Right, and animal rights as well.
And animal rights, and animal rights. So a voice for wildlife and advocating for wildlife is very essential. So that has been my journey as a conservationist and a journey in SFS.
Thank you. And would you say like your first mentor with getting into the SSFS program in Kenya? When you
Yes.
were in the States, you said it was in Canada, if I just circle back on that.
Yes.
So, uh, what was his name, and like, how did he inspire you to come and join us as a
Yes. Good. Thank you for the question. Actually, he was called Professor Gatton, and he was from the University of Idaho. And he came back to Kenya during his Fulbright scholarship and offered me a scholarship to study in the US. If that man was not kind enough to go back to the US and look for a grant from US Forest Service and get me to come to the US, possibly I would never have studied in North America. But he got money, he welcomed me there, he supported me even from his own finances and helped support my master's degree. And I really am indebted to him. He has made me love Idaho and love General America. I believe that America and always regard America as my second home. Very lovely people. It was an incredible opportunity that I got. It changed my life in so many ways. And actually, I've named him after my second born son, Oz. He was called Oz Gatton. So he's my mentor in conservation. He also inspired me to be very rigorous in terms of research and interested me to take statistics and quantitative approaches of analyzing data, designing experiments, being able to do proper interpretation. So the quantitative side of my academics, including design and experimentation and good research, was actually motivated by him. And I know that many biologists have a phobia for numbers, but he helped me overcome that phobia and make me like statistics. And it has really helped me in terms of analyzing my papers, helped me in terms of publishing. It has made it easier to publish and to do research because of being experienced in quantitative skills.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And had he not offered you that scholarship while in the U.S., you marked it would have been difficult to get a scholarship even in Kenya, where we are right
Absolutely.
now.
Absolutely. Kenya does not have a lot of scholarships for graduate students. I mean, there are very few opportunities. It is most easier if you get a scholarship from outside. I'm pretty sure if he didn't give me that scholarship, I would not have proceeded on to my master's.
Got you. And thanks for that remark. Would you also tell us about the book you published, The Future of Wildlife, its purpose for leaders and other students, such as myself, looking to gain interest and perspective into the topic?
Yeah, thank you. Last year, I and my colleague, Professor John Kringe, published a book on the future of conservation in Kenya. And that book comes from many years of experience, both in Amboseli and outside this ecosystem. And one of the main themes of that question is there a future for wildlife and protected areas in Kenya, given the challenges we are having? And there are various challenges that comes from increasing population, expanding land use, incompatible land use practices, human-wildlife conflicts is a big deal, poaching, bushmeat trade, commercial poaching, so many a variety of challenges that are facing protected areas and wildlife today in Kenya. And we just wanted to ask, is there a way we can reasonably talk about their future in the context of these myriad challenges? So what we did is we used a very simple approach. We used what we call key informant approach. We went all over Kenya. We got a grant from the Nature Conservancy, actually. Got a grant from Nature Conservancy, and I was asked by Kenya Wildlife Service to go around the whole country and talk to all people in key wildlife conservation areas all over Kenya. and look at the human-wildlife conflicts. Which animals are involved? What are their impacts on people? What are the people impacts on wildlife? What are the underlying reasons for that? What are some of the mitigation strategies that are being done? And what is the way forward? How can we improve coexistence between people and wildlife? So we took that opportunity. We went out. We had key informant people, people who have been in conservation for years, elderly people who have watched wildlife populations in their areas for long, people who have been involved in that space. And we took about 10 people in every conservation area and had a set of questions that we asked them about what are the key human wildlife issues here, what are the problem animals, what are the impacts of animals to people, what are the impacts of people to animals, what is the status of migration corridors, what is the issue with the wildlife population increase as well as human population increase, what are the areas of intersect in competing for critical resources like pasture, water, space, what are the issues? And we asked those questions and put them on what we call a Likert scale. A Likert scale is where you put from 1 to 5, where 1 is very, very low or poor, and then around 3 is medium or average, and then 5 is very high or very good. So we could ask a question, for example, are people benefiting from wildlife? In your own view, is it yes or no, and how would you rate that? What are the mitigation strategies here? Of course, those they will list, but are they working? Are they efficient? Are people benefiting from wildlife? Is wildlife secure here? What is the status about bushmeat trade? What are the other that so we asked those, they gave us reason, but they also rated on a Likert scale of 1 to 5. When we did that, then we asked them, in your experience, of course, give reasons are justified, but do you think that protected areas and wildlife has a future? And what is your reason for that? So they would say, I don't think they have a future because there is encroachment of their space, there is retaliatory killing of elephants or poisoning, people are encroaching on elephant space, or that elephants are killing people, lions are preying on people's livestock, people are carrying a lot of cost on conservation. This is not being addressed very well. Wildlife kill people or injure people. The government does not compensate them, or compensation takes long. And because of these other reasons, I think that there is a very good future for Kenya, provided these things are not addressed. And they say, how would you rate it? And they would rate it maybe some 1, some 2. And so that book collects all that data and looks at various ecosystems and looks at the most danger points, ecosystems, and what are the most danger issues, what are the most critical issues, and what it is they say, and what is the prospects of wildlife in that ecosystem. For example, here in Amboseli, we met all stakeholders here, and the prospects for wildlife in Amboseli was rated as number 2, very low. And the reason is encroachment on Amboseli National Park, human wildlife conflicts, retaliatory killing, lack of benefits, and stuff like that. But that was a time before maybe things like conservancy started to emerge and people started to benefit from wildlife. I think maybe if somebody asks that question, it might change depending on what actions people are doing. So every conservation area, there are about 8 conservation areas in Kenya. We assessed each one of them. We gave an approximate prospect of the future of wildlife there. We isolated the most critical challenges. We looked at the mitigation strategies that are practiced there, and we looked at some of the things that can be done to reverse the likely, if it is poor, some of the things that people can do to reverse that. And so that book is written from a data point of view and an expert point of view, taken from the views of people from all conservation areas, and summarizes the status of the future of conservation. I think it is a very good read. It is very thought-provoking. It provides fodder for scholars as well as teachers and researchers to look at what we found so that they can take it a notch higher. I think students who read that, they will completely understand all the challenges facing conservation in Kenya and what are the reasons for those challenges.
Great, great. And just to close on this, what advice would you give other students in this field and on this program that are trying to find out more about the ecological and biological state in Kenya in regards to wanting to preserve wildlife, mammals, and other inhabitants here of this land.
Thank you. I think conservation is a very interesting field. There are so many things that are not yet known. You just look at the social organization and the ecology and the behavior of animals like keystone species like the elephants, the rhinos, large mammals like zebra, giraffe. Look at primates like baboons and vervet monkeys and gorillas and stuff like that. There is a lot of interesting things that we have not known on their behavior, on their resource preference, on things that can help their population stabilize, because some of the most charismatic species are endangered. So there is a lot of things to be learned that we don't know yet. Just in the last century, we just discovered that elephants can actually communicate with the low frequency vocalization and communicate with each other. We have learned about the social organization of elephants as some of the most intelligent animals that rival primates. They are socially involved with each other. There are just a lot of things that we still can learn from animals that we do not know yet, including the causes for species getting threatened and endangered and stuff like that. So there is a lot to learn there. But just I take home, conservation is a very, very rich area of inquiry. We are talking about climate change. We don't know about the effect of climate change on many species, how that will add to other human wildlife interactions. We don't know that. It needs a lot of inquiry. The role of species as being indicators like reptiles, which we have never touched, we don't touch on reptiles in this place, or amphibians and their role in climate change or knowing what is happening there. But it is very important to know that conservation is, like I said in the beginning, slightly an elitist subject, because if you are looking at the third world countries, their immediate problems and things affecting them is not conservation. And yet conservation is very critical for the quality of life of people. It needs a lot of awareness to enlighten people that conservation, like large mammals, elephants, rhinos, uh, um, lions, are very, very important for human beings and for the ecosystem. And also to know that problems dealing with the human wildlife coexistence are very complex and cannot be solved maybe in one study or two study. They need a lifelong commitment and they need somebody to follow it for a long time. So for students who are coming to learn this, first of all, maybe you will just have a clear appreciation of the complexity of the conservation issues in a place like this one, and then you begin to look at what other people have done and even compare it at home. Compare it in America. What did they do about spotted owl? What did they do about California condor? How about the bears and coyotes and stuff like that? And just compare the stories of conservation between America and here, and see what are the areas which can provide some good practices. But it is an area that is very interesting, yet poorly funded and poorly managed. And in Africa, we still have a lot of challenges in terms of conserving our extraordinary natural heritage of wildlife and protected areas.
Exactly, just what you said about that scope of comparing and contrasting.
Yes.
Too.
Yes.
Yeah, and that is actually all. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Asante sana.
Thank you, sir.
Okay,